This is Danny with QuadLugs, and we're going to install the electronics. First of all, we're going to put on the ESC, and that's the electronic speed controller. All four of them are made into one component that's going to power and control the motors. Let's go ahead and take off the deck. Your ESC, we're going to go ahead and open it. And the only soldering you're going to have on the ESC is the battery plug. So whichever battery plug you like, you'll go ahead and install it. Keep it in mind, the polarity, the positive and negative. You'll also get a couple of wiring harnesses. We're going to use this one. It has the connections already on. This is the same wiring harness, just without the connections. If you wanted to solder it direct, we're not going to use this, but save it. And also there's a capacitor, which we're not going to use at this present time, but keep it. So we're going to get this soldered on, and that's here a power pad, which will power up our controller when we get to that point. But we're going to solder this on, and we're going to solder a connector on. Okay, we have our connector on. And I'm using an XT60, and you probably will too on this build. And we have a power lead that's going to power our controller, and that's to come. Here's where we plug in this cable, and that's going to our controller also, and we'll go through that in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and take that off for right now. So we'll connect this later. For right now, we need to determine which is our front or our back of the quad. Doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead and pick this side as the front and this is the back. And by doing that, we're going to run the power wires from the ESC toward the back. So to locate our ESC from this point to this point, 4 3/4 inches, and you should have about the same here. And from this point to this point, about 1 3/4 inches, you should have the same amount there. So I pretty much put it in the center and keep this in the center here also. What you want to try not to do is to press on the components on your ESC. You can, but too much pressure you might dislodge a component. And then you want to make sure that this way it's straight also. And we will mark our holes. Once again, with our 1/8 inch bit, we're going to drill these holes. Watch not to get a splinter. Just make sure that these are cleaned up. Okay. Now with your kit came the screws, nylon screws and washers. And we're going to put those on. So for each screw, we'll put a washer on. So we'll go ahead and install the screws. And now we'll put the washers on top. So now we'll put the spacers, and they're 4 millimeters long. And we're ready to install our ESC. We'll go ahead and put this plug on now. And again, we want to make sure these pins are toward that side and also on this. And it should just slide right in. Okay? Now let's go ahead and get our ESC put on. So apply a little pressure on the bottom of the screws just to make sure that the ESC settles down. On top of the ESC, We have another set of spacers. They're also 4mm. This is a 3D printed part that will go on top, and our controller is going to sit on top of this once it's installed. So let's go ahead and use an 1/8 inch bit just to make sure that they fit well. And now we'll install it on top. So let's put the nuts on and tighten it down. An easy way to tighten it up, just hold the nut with your finger and you can just tighten it up with a screwdriver. So you want to tighten them up enough to where it doesn't move, but not too tight where you break a component. And that looks pretty good. Not too tight, but tight enough. And we just do a quick visual to make sure everything looks good. Okay. So we have our ESC installed. Let's go ahead and wire them up. We'll check rotation when we go to set up the controller. But until then, we'll just have them hooked up like this. Everything's wired. The motors are wired. If you need to change rotation when the time comes, you'll just take any of these 3 wires and switch them over like this. Disconnect this one. Put it here. Put it here. So just changing any 2 of these wires will change the rotation. We'll go through that in a little bit. Now that we have our ESC installed, we're ready for our controller.